been back on looking into metaphysics. So one of my favorite things to do is looking at how the universe works. So I've actually coined the term as well. I'm coming up with words: fundamental metaphysics. So there is something in physics called fundamental physics, and these are like people that are trying to understand how the universe works, and they're trying to unify the two main theories which are in opposition with each other at the moment. So there is no one really. There is nothing in mainstream science which has fused the standard model or Einstein's theory of how the universe works with quantum physics. So there are people that I follow. One of my favorite channels is Kurt Jamanga's channel. It's called The Theory of Everything. This is a YouTube channel. It's one of my favorites. I probably say I understand about 10% of what the people say on it, but just as a inquiry into the mind, an inquiry into the way things work, it is my favorite channel, I would say. So yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out if you're interested in the kind of topics that I'll be discovering, that I'll be talking about today. I would say about on that channel, 80% of people that come on that channel, maybe 70% of people come on are just like straight physicists, but he will have philosophers as well, and people that are trying to map out how the universe works from a philosophical and metaphysical perspective. So obviously that's kind of what I mainly focus on. But as I keep on saying, like, you can't have the metaphysical without the physical. And so for me, you have to be able to ground your theory. You have to be able to ground your philosophy of how you see the world, your worldview. It has to be grounded in some it has to correlate to what you see. So all physics does and all mathematics does is try to explain what they see. That's what science is. Science is the study of nature. It's so simple. It's just the study of nature. So physics is just the physical study of nature. And because someone that is a metaphysician like myself, we understand that there are things beyond the physical. That's all we're basically saying. So how do we bridge that gap between what is in the physical and what is in the spiritual? Because if the universe is mental, which is one of my mainstays, you know, it's one of my mainstays in terms of just how I see the universe. And obviously, you know, I've not made that the universe is mental. But then how do we go from a mental construct into a physical construct, into a physical reality? And if you don't have any coherence in that, and you're trying to build systems, you're trying to build mind works, you're trying to build frameworks. My volume's low. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Thank you. All right, I'll bring this a little bit closer. Let me see if I can do anything else. See if I can turn up my mics as well. All right. All right, so yeah, I can turn that up about 10%, but I will just try to speak up also as well. So yeah, the channel is called the Theory of Everything. Kurt Jamangal. I'll try and pull it up as well in a second whilst we're looking. So let me just go back to YouTube and I'll pull it up. So see if I can find this link. Kurt Jamangal. See, I'm just reading the chat as well. Obviously, people have got the chat open today. So yeah, I want a lively chat, or just ask as many questions as you want. Like, the more questions, the more I can dial in to like what is resonant in people's mind. Theory of Everything. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, his channel is literally just called Kurt Jamangal, but yeah, it's called The Theories of Everything. So you have to find it. All right, cool. There you go. All right, cool. So yeah, there's the channel. All right, cool. So I'm gonna start now, basically. So yeah, let me just start. I would say that a lot of my notes are in ChatGTP, and I've not really even put them into my OS yet, and I don't really feel like I need to. Like, is anyone enjoying ChatGTP 5? I don't know, boy. Like, so in my world, obviously, I've got this kind of metaphysical mind, occult mindset, And then obviously I'm also into technology as well. So I obviously have a digital marketing company. I'm into business. You know, I've got my own app, so on and so forth. So for me, it was just crazy that they launched ChatGTP 5 the day before the Lionsgate, or literally the day that I wake up is the day that they launched ChatGTP 5. So obviously we're in the UK, so I didn't get ChatGTP 5 until the 8th of the 8th, i.e. the Lionsgate. And I didn't even work on it for the first few days, but yeah, today I've kind of went in with it, and it's the next level. It's just went to a whole nother level, a whole nother level. So yeah, hopefully people are enjoying the technology. But again, these things are just tools. This is a beautiful segue actually, just in terms of a natural start for the video, to say that these things are just tools. It is the mind of the creator that is going to allow you to tap into these and take full advantage basically of these technologies. The future is here now. Like, I probably listened to my favorite podcast that I've heard for the whole year today, and it talks about my technology. So I've basically got a wellness center, and I've basically got these technologies. I've got these plasma and scalar technologies that I believe are the best in the world. I just don't have the proof for it because I don't have enough clients. I've just started, you know, we're on like day 1 or day 2. Let's just say we're in our early stages. We're only open last month, and I've been doing other things as well. So we're just still trying to set up to a degree, but we are open as well. And I just listened to the most beautiful podcast talking about how the technology that I specifically have has been helping people in America. And we're talking like real terminal illnesses. We're talking about real long-term diseases like cancers and things like that, or spine issues. Like the person that he deals with, a lot of people that basically have given up hope. They don't really have much hope, so they go to these alternative medicines and these alternative therapies because they've obviously tried the mainstream stuff and it's not really worked for them how they would hope it would have worked for them. And so they go to a guy like this person in America, and he does an interview basically with the inventor of the technology that I have. So I'm going to post a link as well in the chat as well, just for the video if you don't want to watch it. But the video is just mind blowing, just absolutely mind blowing in terms of the technology that we actually have available. The future is here now. Like, for anyone that's sitting and waiting for, I don't know, the return of a savior. For anyone that's returning for a savior to save them, like, no one's coming. There is no need for anyone to come because all of this technology, like, we're in a world, we're born in a time where ChatGTP 5 is out. So for anyone that doesn't understand what that basically means, it basically means that you've got a PhD person in your pocket at practically anything you can think of. So it's like, what I've been explaining is that the quality of your consciousness should be your main focus in life. If the universe is mental and the only thing you take with you when you die is your consciousness, then the focus must be to improve the quality of your consciousness. It's so simple. So simple. So if ChatGTP 5 comes out, and I'm not saying that everyone has to use it, but I'm just saying if you were basically technology based, you were online based, and your life hadn't got improved from having the ability to have a PhD worth of knowledge, then maybe that speaks to your ability to create something in the mind into matter. I'm not going to say that's guaranteed because obviously there's so many ways to do this. There's so many ways to improve the quality of your consciousness. So I'm not going to be so specific or so blunt to say that you have to be using it. But I'm just saying that we're in a time now where we've got plasma and scalar technology that literally performs miracles, like creating a space for miracles. And this is available to I'd say almost anyone, obviously depending on budgets and stuff like that. But the technology is out there. Elon Musk is talking about jet propulsion based on plasma technology. You know, it's mainstream. We're talking about quantum computers. You know, like, what a time to be alive, people. That's what I'm basically trying to say. I'm literally just trying to say, what a time to be alive. And that because of the way the world works with balance, because there's so many opportunities, we can only but see things like more wars. We can only see, because obviously certain systems are breaking down and certain new energies are coming in. So people are feeling there is a tension. That tension, and in that tension is where the magic happens. You know, will it build or break you? Only a few are chosen, but will it build or break you? That's essentially the time that we're in now. So because it's the time where the expansion point, the extreme points are getting stretched, because the universe is always expanding. And so in a universe that's always expanding, there is always a stretch point if you don't understand how to tap into your magic. If you understand how to tap into your magic, then you don't feel that tension. You feel flow. You feel abundance. Do you see what I mean? So one man's prison is another man's heaven. Like, this is clear. And it's all about how you're able to dial in, all about how you're able to tap into these moments, these opportunities. This is the key. This is the key. So all right, I'm going to read out something that my cousin said. So on Saturday, basically, I said one thing, basically, which is, what you're really trying to do is, if you're able to tap into your intention without feeling lack, you have the keys to the universe. So I said this on this podcast that I went on over the weekend. It's just one of my statements I just made up on the spot, but my cousin reminded me of it. Said, "Yo, that was quite transformative for them to hear that." So that's exactly what I was speaking about in terms of, like, when you're feeling this expansion, are you feeling it as a tension point? There's too much. Life is confusing. There's too much information overload, or are you able to actually build that information and store that information in a coherent way, in a way that makes sense for you, in a way that is ordered? So the information is neutral. It is our consciousness and our ability to interpret that, and the universe is light. So light equals information. That's all it is. So yeah, like I said, if you're able to tap into your intention without feeling lack, you have the keys to the universe. All right, cool. So I'm going to start bringing up today now. Now I'm going to start bringing up the structure. Like I said, today I'm not the most organized. I could have maybe taken another 5 minutes and I would have been a bit more organized with my notes. I've got my notes, but they're just in two different places. So I'm just going to get out both of the places and just pivot between the two. That's basically what we're going to be doing today. So I'm just going to get out where my second notes are. But yeah, the main thing I wanted to speak on today, as a main theme, is this idea of a ghost versus a wizard. So what I'm basically saying is, I've created a masterclass called Create Your Own Reality. You can just find out, it's a playlist basically on YouTube. So it's about 8 hours worth of me just speaking about how to create your own universe. So today is not, I'm not going to be attempting to repeat that. That's what that playlist is for. But this is kind of like another call to action and another perspective on how to do that, and why, and more importantly, why it's important, and how to start thinking about that. Because what we're essentially saying is that reality is always being created. Reality is always constructing. So you're either a master or a slave to reality. And in this, with this idea of creating your own reality, there are many pitfalls. So I'm probably about a year into my journey of having my universe mapped out, what I call my U-verse. So I've had my U-verse mapped out for a whole year, and I've been living in my universe like just be living in my universe. My universe is expansive. It's I'm a Jupiterian, I'm a Sagittarian at heart with a lot of these energies. And so my universe is expansive. But even within this expansive universe, I found myself getting caught in certain traps that are like ghosts, that are like gremlins, that are like gremlins in the system. And so whenever you're the beauty of what a wise mind does, or the beauty of what a conscious mind does, a conscientious mind does, a conscientiousness is on the down. Like, we're going through a crisis of conscientiousness. I was looking at some stats the other day. Amongst 18 to 30-year-olds, we are basically going in a crisis of conscientiousness. And it's like sad, basically. It's like kind of sad, because your conscientiousness is the key to your consciousness. And what we're basically doing is we're spiraling out of control. So what you're always looking to do is whenever you're living life, you always have to understand when is the time to reevaluate, relook at your system and clean it up, basically do some house cleaning. So it's all, or in computer terms we call it debugging. Basically we call it debugging. So you've got these two main tensions which are always pulling you. I would say that it's the soul's call, and I would say that these are universal tensions. So we'll see if we're on anything here. So one is this call to action to be a creator, or what I say, mastering the 10. So it's one of these themes of me talking about mastering the 10. Boom, 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 boom. Mums is in the building. Amazing. Mums is in the building. We're good to go. We're good to go. We're here. We're here. We're here. Peace and love. So, yeah. So as I was saying, the idea is basically that the number one would represent energy, would represent masculine energy, would represent outgoing energy or centrifugal force. And then you've got the 0, which is representing the female, the womb, magnetism. And from a philosophical perspective, 1 represents the emptiness or the nothingness, which is represented by the 0. And then the 1 represents the allness. So if you watch my videos, probably it would be hard for you to watch 3 to 4 videos in a row and I don't mention something about me. My personal path is to master the 10. I literally just said that and we had 10 views. I've now went up to 11. Went up to 11 views. So the idea is to master the 10. And this basically means balance. This basically means balance. This is what I'm personally going for in my universe. I'm gonna explain that. I'm gonna explain my model of the universe a little bit later. But we're just talking about the fact that the gremlins or the bugs is people that move towards hedonism. So abundance, the shadow of abundance is hedonism, and the shadow of emptiness or non-perception, so these are more Buddhist terms, obviously the emptiness of Buddhist terms, the shadow of that is nihilism. And so when I'm talking about me creating this universe, is because I've created this universe where basically I move in between, let's just say I move in between the 1 and the 0. I use them as tools, sometimes tapping into the emptiness mind states and nothingness mind states, and then sometimes tapping into the abundance mind states. And the traps of hedonism and nihilism are always potentially present. It's just something that I'm always having to check. So what I've produced is I've produced a beautiful table, which I'll show later. I'm going to come back to this idea basically. But what I'm basically saying with the emptiness is we're talking about the emptiness as the ghost. So we're saying that these are the ghost traps. These are the ghost traps within your OS system, and also its abundance as well. So most people don't really think of the negatives of abundance. And so what we're basically doing is we're going to be breaking down in this video abundance and emptiness, but we're going to kind of do that at the end. I'm going to layer this up basically, so I'm kind of just warming you guys up. What we're really going to be doing at the beginning of the video though is going through some theories of everything and speaking about why creating your own universe is important. So I've kind of touched on that already. So yeah, strap in. All right, so most people's, I would say, just if I was to gauge where a lot of people's perspectives are in the metaphysical community, I would say that one of the main theories of how the universe works is the simulation theory. So the simulation theory is just based off of, I would say, most popularized and archetyped in the film The Matrix. This is probably where most people have got their kind of idea of like us living in a false reality is based on. And the danger of believing in the simulation theory is that potentially, depending on your version of simulation theory, is potentially likely going to lead to nihilism. And I've seen this with so many people that I personally know that talk about the universe as a simulation. It's just a simulation. It's just a simulation. Because what you're then doing with the simulation theory is that you're tapping into the idea that this isn't real. And so then what you do becomes meaningless. So it becomes a collapse of meaning into bleakness and a sense that nothing matters and that nothing can be reactivated. So it's a lot. So you basically have a loss to the point where you feel discontent, disorientated and disconnected. So when we insert these ideas, like most people won't really see that. So when people are talking about, oh, my days, the simulation theory. So I've been at the start of people's journey, and I'm kind of even doing it now with someone as well right now, where someone has read something or come upon information that they think is really, really, really interesting. Really, really interested. And I've made like an assumption, like I don't know what's going to happen in this person's future, but I've basically made an assumption that their life is probably going to follow either one of two trajectories, because if you go deep into this ideology, it's going to lead to either one or the two extremes, or somewhere on that scale of the extremes. So this is where your attention, there is a responsibility to your attention. So what we're basically saying is that your attention is what shapes reality. So this has been proven in quantum physics. I've explained this before in detail before. I'm not going to explain it today, but essentially your attention is shaping reality. So that basically means that your attention becomes a moral act. So what you put your mind to in terms of a focus bends and affects reality. So you paying attention affects your morality. It's impossible for it not to, because the universe is a self-initiated, and I'll just use the word mirror. I'm not going to use the word assimilator, but I'll use the word mirror. I don't mind the nuance of all of these things, quite honestly, is that there's more than one simulation theory. So it just depends on how you explain it depends on how you explain the simulation theory, which will depend on how I respond to it. So, like as I was explaining today to someone, there's many interpretations of the universe is mental. Like when people say the universe is mental, okay, what do you mean? You know me, I'm into detail. And there are different interpretations of what they mean by mental. I explained a couple of them. But I explained two extreme variances of that to someone today, basically. It's all about how you perceive God, or the source, or your creator, or the prime energy of the universe, basically. And there's two main extreme versions of that from a mental idealistic aspect. So one of them is that the universe or God is only exists in the I am state. So I would love for someone, I don't know if there's people in the chat, in the live, I'd love for someone to give me how they perceive God. And I'm going to go to the two extremes. So there may be a variance in between, but I want to see kind of where on the fence you sit on the scale. So one side of the fence says that God can only exist in the I am. So God is I am and nothing else. And that basically means that God doesn't think like how humans think, or creation or energy doesn't think how humans think. It doesn't have this thing called metacognition, which is the ability to think about you thinking. And you can obviously think about you thinking, you know, layering up as ad infinitum. So that's one aspect, basically. And then the other aspect, like I said, is the aspect where the divine, the most high, whatever term you want to use that you're comfortable with to describe the primal nature of all, or of everything, or of something, the primal nature, the core, is that the universe is metacognitive, i.e. has the ability to process information, reflect, and then look back at itself and make adjustments and auto-correct, i.e. metacognition, the ability to think about thinking. So yeah, I'm not going to go into the technicalities of what those two implications are, but I'm just going to say that those are the two extreme views. When people say the universe is mental, those are the kind of two extreme views that you would sit on: God as a thinker, or God as a doer, basically. So yeah, let me read the chat. Let me see what people are saying in the chat. Basically, it's all God in various modes and forms of perception, I think. Yeah. That can be true. I wouldn't say that answered my question though. I would say that's a different aspect of God, or a different attribute of God. But I wouldn't say that specifically answered my question, because when you start thinking about these things, it's like, okay, cool. So then what would heaven be? These ideas completely affect your idea of heaven, your ideas of an afterlife. They would have to impact, if they would have to have an impact on that, which then obviously has a complete foundational implication of your belief system. So I'm not necessarily saying that whether you know these things or not, but I basically say that all universes, all human universes or systems of thinking are created with at least one assumption that is unprovable. I can prove this in scientific theory, but I'm not going to. I'm just saying that every single one of your mental constructs, at the foundation of it is something that you can't prove. It's something that's based off of a belief, and these beliefs will shape your whole existence, whether subconscious or conscious. And so all we're really trying to do with these models and look at and kind of looking at these models. So when I'm going to be breaking down some of these models, it's not to say whether you agree or not. It's just to say, how am I thinking about these questions? How am I thinking about these models? How am I thinking about these methods? Are there any gaps that are leading to negative states of existence because there is a cognitive dissonance between my belief systems that are not speaking in coherence? So I don't really care what you believe, quite honestly. Like I couldn't really care less. Like, you know, do you, basically? The call to action that I implore for people is when you're thinking about these things, just make sure it's coherent. Make sure it makes sense. At least make sure if it makes sense, because if it doesn't make sense, you're not going to be able to build the foundations where you can explore your worldview enough to see where the system breaks down, because you're always trying to look for fault lines. There are no perfect systems. There are no complete systems. There are no complete systems. You can go check out something called Gödel's incompleteness theorem, which mathematically proves that there are no complete systems. So this is not about a system that is perfect. It's not about me looking into a system and say, look, this is the perfect system. It's not about that at all. This is about how do you construct wisdom. If consciousness is the only thing you take with you when you transition, well, then wisdom is gold. Wisdom is golden. All right, so let me pull up a couple of these things now. Pull up a couple of more of these things. Yeah, like I said, I'm flicking between two models today. I'm flicking between two models. All right, series 2, phase 1, 2, all right, cool. Thank you very much for your patience, people. Thank you very much for your patience, people. All right, Ken Wheeler. All right, I'm just looking for one thing. I'm looking to... Ah, there you go. Found you. Found you. There. Oh, not really yet. All right, cool. I'll just break it down like this instead. I wrote something earlier, but I can't find it in my notes. All right, cool. So basically, what you're looking to do, there's 3 ways in which to break down the universe. You might want to write this down. So discovery. So a nice way to think of yourself as an explorer of your own universe, an explorer of your own mind. Life essentially is the exploration of your own mind through self, from self to self, through self. It's a journey of self, going through self to return back to self. And at each one of these states, you basically are or have the ability to go into discovery mode. You know, so we talk about the metacognition. So what is the kind of things behind your thoughts? What's the room behind your thoughts, basically? That's one absolute key. The second is decryption. So in any system, you have to be able to understand the language. What is the language of your system? What is the lexicon? So these system of words, so you can basically only operate from a system of words. And these system of words build the possibilities within your universe. And one of your jobs is to decrypt the code. This is decrypt the code of your universe. This is why we get into things like astrology. This is why we get into things like numerology. This is why we get into things like physics. Is because we're trying to understand it at a fundamental level. We're trying to peel back the layers, like reductionism. We're trying to peel back the layers to reduce it to its most simple point. Basically, this is absolutely key. And then once we are able to do that, reverse engineering, we're then able to deploy. And so the deploy is the final act. Deploy is where you're able to take reality's secret gears and use them to build new interfaces, to build and construct new forms of reality. But what you're trying to do in the decryption phase and the discovery phase is find out what the levers are, find out what the gears are, find out what the components are, find out what the nodes are. to life. So that's essentially the structure of what you would want to do going through. So you would go through a discovery phase. You'd write down some questions that would prompt, you know, think about your mind as a system. So you prompt, obviously that's now ChatGPT level. How are you prompting your mind? So one thing that I've repeated before is a question. So what is a question? Questions are curiosity. Questions allow for curiosity to expand, a space where curiosity expands in. Also metaphysically, it's the word quest. In the word question is the word quest. So you also have the word IO, is also on and off, IO. You also have the word ion, which is a charge, which is energy. So what is charging your journey? What is charging your curiosity? Essentially, what is motivating you? That's what a question is. So these prompts, we're prompting ourselves with questions to find out what our own motivations are, what are our desires at our base level, what are our beliefs at our base level. And so I've got a whole bunch of like master questions that I ask myself, or that I have the ability to ask myself. Obviously, I do spiritual life coaching. So at any time I can ask myself or ask clients these questions, which allow me to tap into specific areas within their system to shine a lens on it. This is basically what we're doing. All right, cool. So I'm now going to start sharing my slides, and then let's do this. I'm going to share my slides. All right, cool. Move the screen here. So focus right, droid cam. Let's see what happens here. PC. Always got to find out what camera it is. One of them. The other one as well. Got about 10 screens. All right, that one's running decent. And that one's even better. All right, cool. We're there. All right. Woo. Boom. All right, cool. So basically, when you're deploying the gears, each gear has perception. So when you're building the gears to your reality, you need to understand what you perceive. And this is why it's so important to understand theories of everything, because your eyes are connected to your brain. So you are what you see. You are what you see. So perception is everything. Out of the 5 senses, perception controls 80% of them. So what you see controls 80% of the 5 senses, is dominant, essentially. So the mind's eye is dominant. So who's controlling your camera angle? So the perception is built off of, like I said, your worldview, literally your worldview. That then allows you to tap into your meaning. So what is the meaning of your life? What is the game? What game are you playing? As I said, one of the people I used to listen to would always say, there's nothing worse than, there's no other fear that I would have other than coming to the end of the life and knowing I played the wrong game. So yeah, that's a deep one. That one hits deep if you deep that one. Are you even playing the right game? You know. And then, like I said, I spoke about language before. What is the syntax? Syntax is how you create meaning with words, basically. And then obviously, what is the actions, and then what is the alignment? But today we're probably not going to focus too much on action and alignment. We're going to be mainly focused on perception, meaning, and language, essentially. That's what we're going to be focused on today in the main. So, all right, cool. So this one's simulation theory. So we're going to go through simulation theory real quick. It basically says, simulation theory basically states that, let's make that bigger as well. Boom. All right, cool. So simulation theory. Where are we? Boom. Ken Wheeler's. All right, cool. We're gonna do Ken Wheeler's. We're gonna do Ken Wheeler first. So Ken Wheeler is one of my favorite people that I listen to. So again, you can check out this Substack, or you can check out this channel as well. So I'll just put a link in the description just whilst we're there. It's Ken Wheeler's. So basically, Ken Wheeler is someone that I've listened to for the last 5 to 6 years, basically. What I enjoy about Ken Wheeler's work is his use of language. So he's a bit of a, I'll just use the word polymath. But basically, he's someone that can read ancient language. He can read ancient Sanskrit, ancient Pali, which is Buddhist text, ancient Greece, and also ancient Latin, or just Latin in general, really. So he reads original source material, basically, and is a great translator. So that's one of the things he does. Is also heavy into metaphysics because of his translation, mainly of metaphysical text, which is what his passion is. And so he's basically constructed his idea of the universe, which is not too dissimilar from my ideas, or let's just say I've been influenced by him very, very heavily. Essentially, he speaks a lot of sense to basically what I'm looking into. So this is the blog post that breaks down the universe. It's not that long. One of the things I enjoy about him is his use of words in terms of how succinct he is with information. What people normally take a whole book to write, he can write in one blog. That's probably what I admire the most, is his conciseness with language to break things down. I wouldn't say simply, quite honestly, but like just to break it down anyway at his attempts. So what we're basically looking at is we're looking at the two forces of, we're trying to understand what natural order is. So the natural order of the universe is rest. If I was just going to break down his theory of everything into one main construct or concept, it would be this idea of rest and what true emptiness is. So this is why at the end we're going to discuss what the difference between emptiness and nihilism, and why nihilism is not emptiness. But right now we're going to just focus on emptiness, which is a misnomer, which is a Western interpretation, which doesn't really mean nothingness in terms of the absence of. It actually means everythingness to a degree, but outside of the realm of non-perception. So in Buddhism, the highest form of Buddhism, the highest stage of Buddhism is non-perception, where you basically are not conscious that you're conscious, or you lose all sense of you being conscious. This is the highest state that all Buddhists, and I'm going to just generalize there, I'll just use the word all Buddhists are trying to achieve. And so at this state, this is what they basically mean by emptiness, which would represent the zero, just to be clear. So I won't get too much into the story, but this basically has been quite a revelation in my life over the past year, when I would say, understood it for the first time ever about 8 months ago. So probably more than that now. About almost a year ago, I would say. 10 months ago, actually, if I'm being a bit more specific. So yeah, about 10 months ago, we understand this idea of non-perception and how you go from this level of consciousness. So the word that you're looking for is the jhanas. So I'll just put that in the chat here. So the jhanas talks about how you go from nothing into something, or something into nothing, because obviously we are something. We're on this call, we are something. So then how do you reverse, strip away, reduce, to become the allness it would be by obviously removing your false egos, removing your identity, so on and so forth, and stripping back the layers of who you are. So you just reach to the I am. And even that I am is not necessarily in this particular idea of I am. We're not saying that I am is something that would be recognized by the person saying I am. I think that's the best way to explain it. So again, in this idea of the universe is mental, in the Buddhist idea of the universe is mental, God would be non-perceiving. God wouldn't have the ability to think about its own thoughts and ruminate and mentate and go into states of metacognition, just to be clear. So this is what we mean by emptiness. So what we're saying is, in this particular system of Ken Wheeler's system, we're basically saying that the idea of energy or matter as we see it is actually energy loss, is a loss of energy, because it's moved from its rest state. When it was in its rest state, in its state of pure potential, it was formless. Its energy was full. In order for this material world to exist, there needed to be a disruption of rest. That disruption of rest is energy. That's actually what the definition of energy is. Well, a paraphrased definition, non-mathematical definition of energy is a disruption of rest. And so when we're talking about flow states, anyone that's hit these flow states, it's because it becomes easy. So tension, stress and tension to the system is a drain on energy. I'm not saying that it's fruitful and that you can't create wisdom in it and you can't create these other ideas, but it definitely is a loss of energy unless you are tapping into it from a flow state. You're tapping into it from your rest energy. So what you're always trying to, with a system like this, with Ken Wheeler's system, basically, what you're looking to do is you're looking to tap into your eternal rest state energy. All right, so I'm going to just run through some more of this. Okay, cool. I'm actually reading my notes. Like, I haven't really read my notes until now. This is the first time I'm reading my notes. I just had these things in my head, had to get them out, basically. So I'm kind of reflecting on my own thoughts, which is obviously metacognition. So what we're basically looking for is inward coherence. We're gonna touch back on this word coherence in a second. Like, basically, I would say almost all of the models and the theories of the universe that I'm looking at, I would probably say that a run through key line is this word coherence. How do you build a coherent system? I would imagine is one of my inner callings that was probably subconscious from a very young age, that now is a fully conscious entity that I'm looking to fully understand. And we're basically saying that this universe, when we're talking about the simulation theory, if we did want to talk about it from a simulation theory perspective, it would be saying that this outward dispersion is basically chaos. So entropy is the loss of energy, where things become over time more disordered. So disorder grows over time. And so in mainstream science, 99.9% of your physicists, let's just use the word 99% of the people that dominate physics, says that there can only be entropy. So things can only die. Things can only come to an end. And the word that you want to replace that with, that this person speaks about, and that a lot of people that I listen to speak about, is a word called neg entropy. So neg entropy is the idea that as you build layers, as you move in motion, energy in motion, you are actually creating synergy. You're creating more energy than you're losing. So the whole idea of nuclear fusion, the whole idea of this is what I'm trying to say. The reason why this stuff is so important, to be very specific, is it's also the reason why our health is messed up. The reason why our health is messed up is because we don't understand neg entropy. The reason why we're messed up is because we don't fully understand what a time crystal is, or we're only just coming into the understanding of, oh, there's a thing called a time crystal, or that you can actually do time reversal from a physics perspective, which again is neg entropy, which is we basically over time create more order. So what I'm trying to say, so when they so obviously, so maybe people have heard about timeline splitting. There's a lot of conversations around timeline splitting, and I would argue that the timelines have always been splitting. It was just a matter of perception of whether people are speaking about it coming into it to existence. I wouldn't say that it's potentially increasing. I can see that argument, but for me, it's more about understanding energy. The universe is energy. Are you creating a world in which you are becoming neg entropic, or are you creating a world in which entropy rules? Entropy and neg entropic are just two polar opposites, just to be clear. As I said, one is a move towards order and one is a move towards chaos. And most people in life live a life that moves towards entropy because the standard model that you've been taught is built up on entropy. So your science, the study of nature. And I'm saying, like, these are basically mindsets and patterns, these patterns of belief, which basically taught Einstein physics. Essentially said that everything must die. Everything must cease to exist. And that things can only go one way. And that is an outdated idea that hopefully people on this channel intuitively understand, that no, something can't be right there. And so what I'm trying to do today is like put the scientific framework, i.e. the study of nature, behind how these things are just as real and are actually more dominant in terms of what's being built into the fabric of society. And so you want to think that centripetal, which is what you want, by the way, you want to be centripetal with your energy, which is just another word for negentropy. It means that it gathers and it charges and it aligns. Centrifugal scatters, discharges, and dilutes. Yeah. And so you can just read this. I'm happy to send this to people. Like, I'm gonna tidy up these notes at one point after the call. Like after today, or probably tomorrow at some time, I'm gonna tidy this up. So I do actually want these notes for myself. So yeah, if anyone wants to send me them, just reach out to me and find my LinkedIn, and I will send them to you in the next few days. So we're basically saying that the two constructs of the universe is the torus and the hyperboloid, which is basically this. So you get the flower of life is the 2D construct of a 3D torus field, which is basically this. This is a better image. So we're basically saying that space in between here is what ether is what nothingness is. That space, which is non-local, which is basically the quantum realm. So we're in every circle, in every atom is a torus field where nothingness exists. So we're able to tap. So the idea of the wizard is it's the wizard's ability to tap into this liminal space, to tap into this 0 point energy. This is basically what we're trying to do. So when we are manipulating nature, or we're working with nature, we're influencing nature, understanding it from a 0 space. Peace, Minty Hotep. Nice to have you in the building. So this is what we're looking to do, basically. So this is the flower of life. This is the shape of life, or the shape of all circular momentum. All right, cool. So I'm not going to do it here. I'm going to do this a bit later, but basically the key is phi. The phi ratio is absolutely key to everything. So this is not really a very visual presentation. Sometimes I have like real visual stuff, but I'll just give you the visuals on the fly. Yo, who said that? Yeah, Minty Hotep. Yo, hold on to your horses. So obviously I don't know you from Adam. Good to have you in the building. We're all family. But yeah, you just said an absolute key word there, which is superposition. And I'm gonna break that down. Like even today, I got some breakthroughs that, because I was going into the physics. Like today, the reason why I'm not so prepared is because I was going into heavy physics, like mathematical equations that I don't understand, and I'm having. Thankfully, I've got ChatGPT 5 to just. It kind of basically built it up, built this mathematical framework from one of these totals. This particular theory of everything is not a complicated one. Like it's like in the middle, but there is one theory of everything that I've come across in the past week that it's probably gonna take me years to study. I'm gonna be putting a lot of time into studying it. But intuitively I already know it, quite honestly. That's why I was so drawn to it, because intuitively I got it when they just broke it down from a metaphysical perspective. But me tapping into it from a more physics perspective, and I said you can't get physical is spiritual. And so when I'm saying that the physical is spiritual, it means that there is no separation. Everything is an illusion. Separation is an illusion. That is the disease. And so that means metaphysical is physical. You can't be a metaphysic. You can't be a metaphysician without being a physician. Vice versa. Yeah. So yeah, I can't wait to get into that. Yeah. So remind me superpositioning. All right, cool. Let's keep it. Let's continue. So basically, I'll just say that the phi ratio is the key to superpositioning. I'm going to come back to that later, but just pause that thought for now. I'm just going to say that the phi ratio, the Fibonacci sequence, so golden ratio. So the theory of everything that we're going to discuss a bit later is based off of the golden ratio. So these are people that have dedicated their lives to the golden ratio and have come up with a mathematical theory of everything based on a golden ratio that is way more deeper than this. Like this is what you give to the day one initiates, to basically say this is how you create yourself from yourself. Essentially, when we're looking at the golden ratio, we're basically saying this is how you create something from nothing, from the 0 to the 1 to the 1 to the 2 to the 3 to the 5. Yeah, I know what Mandelbrot fractals are. Yeah, I know what they are. They're beautiful. You should look into also the Birkin, my memory, the Birkin something Brot set as well. That's a beautiful one as well. So yeah, this is how you understand that life is a spiral. this is where you understand that life is a spiral. But I'm gonna come back to it later, like I said. But just hold this thought now that this phi ratio is basically the key to the universe. Another key to the universe. All today I'm dropping is keys to the universe. I'm not really doing much else. So, your mother. So let's get that back up. I just leave my slides. All right, let's load back up. All right, cool. Did it start me off where I was, or I'm gonna have to scroll up? Scroll up. Yeah, I've been putting in work. So yeah, all of this is from yesterday. This is all of this is started from yesterday, basically. So I've been going in for a couple of, like, half a day. A lot of information. All in a day's worth of work, mate. All in a day's worth of work. That's what we gotta do. But it's like, yeah, we're a student of the game, man. We're a student of the game. It is what it is. We're a student of the game. You've got to do these things sometimes. If you really want to just like peel back the layers, is what you got to do. So it's all good. All right, that's a simulation theory. I don't think I started off with that. I think I started with the other one. Yeah, okay, cool. I think we're here now. Yeah, cool. Ken Wheeler. All right, cool. Ken Wheeler. All right, cool. So yes, absolutely. All right, cool. So the curtain parts, the brain glow. All right, cool. We're past that. So a kernel, by the way, in operating systems and computer science, a kernel is the code which connects the hardware with the software. So when you're like, open this page, the instructions to open the page is within a kernel. That's what a kernel is. So the kernel is like the command prompt that allows the hardware to connect with the software, just to be clear. So there's only a minimal amount of systems. I didn't want to go too much into computer language, but there is just like a few things dotted in, obviously, with this idea of OS, operating system. All right, cool. So let's keep it moving. All right, this is important though. So what we're basically the key word that you're looking for is phase conjugation. Probably it's one of the most important words in the universe or in the English language. Phase conjugation. Let's see if there's anything good that comes up. All right, cool. There you go. Boom, done. So phase conjugation. Oh, look, and this is my guy as well, Verify. So this is the technology that this is the earlier version of the technology that I don't have. This costs £30,000. So there's a healing device that's based on plasma technology, that's based on phase conjugation, wave mechanics, and phi ratios. And I've basically bought the latest version of that technology, which is not now phi ray. Phi ray is the £30,000 version that was like that's like now 10 years old. But essentially, this is phase conjugation, where it's essentially two pine cones kissing. So these two pine cones are kissing in perfect motion, creating coherence. And so, yeah, I'm kind of skipping because I don't want to get too heavy into the science yet. I'm kind of trying to slow it down with the layering. But that's basically phase conjugation. Hopefully, visually you get that. And so this is how you basically create energy without losing its own information. If you do it in a way where there is no signal loss, because everything is information, isn't it? So if everything is information, then spectral analysis and information, how you process signals becomes everything. What is signal? A signal is information. So I'm saying that wisdom, from a science or electrical engineering ability perspective, is your ability to process signals without, and you do that two ways: cleaning the noise and keeping what is necessary, keeping the signal clean. Yeah, key. I'm really trying not to go into this word bleed out. I'm trying to ignore this word because this word's, it took me about an hour today. I've spent about an hour today looking just on this one phrase, bleed out. So like, I don't want to Sometimes I struggle to do videos like this because my head has so much information. I'm trying not to like lose people too quickly, basically. And especially when I don't feel like I've prepared it as much. I could have maybe done another day to try and bring some visuals to make it a bit more easier for people to not just hear my voice. I have a visual with a voice, which is what I normally do, but I didn't quite get that far today. So apologies. So in this theory of everything, because I'm picking out some highlights. In this theory of everything, it basically says that wisdom is your ability to see your true self. So the distance between your soul and your center and your psycho spiritual, your psychophysical identity. Some people may call it an ego, a character, an image. The distance between these two is the measure of wisdom. So self proximity is wisdom. Self proximity is wisdom. If you look at deep that one, again, you got another key to the universe. If you could deep that one, in terms of judging where you are, in terms of your soul's mission, which is to return back to self. So I'm basically saying that all souls want to at some point return back to self, whether it's this lifetime or a million. I can't speak for you, but at some point it's gonna want to fall and go return to self, or to see self as self. So self proximity becomes the measure, becomes the yardstick. Am I acting from the core or from noise, i.e., distortion? What you want to do with these, by the way, as well, because I should have been reading them, is read these translations. So we're taking the most metaphysical concepts. Some of these concepts are so deep, and like I said, they really deserve, quite honestly, one lecture per theory of everything. But it's just not what I've decided to do. So I am being very brief. But I'm basically saying I've metaphysically translated them into one prompt each. And so the prompt for self proximity is: am I acting from the core or from noise? Beautiful, beautiful. So, like I said, I have love, and we just want things to make sense. If you have an idea in your head that doesn't make sense, that is noise, i.e., the noise that you sweep under the rug, or the noise that's going to come bite you in your ass at some point because you didn't deal with the matter at the time. You didn't deal with the matter at hand. And so, what you're trying to do in life with your mental models, with your systems of the universe, with how you see the world, is you're trying to bring it into coherence. Another check that you're looking to do as well is you're trying to understand, is this idea universal? So even though it may be coherent, even though it makes sense, it may only make sense from one perspective of reality, which still makes sense, but it's not universal. And so if we're trying to tap into these zeros, these alls or these nothings, these emptiness or these everythingness, if we're trying to tap into these states, which I'm imploring is the goal for all souls, then you want to tap into universality. If my ideas are not universal, they're probably not that important. Relatively speaking, they're important. Like, to me, yeah, they're important. But my soul has a universal mind, or my soul has access to the universal mind. My soul is the universal mind because there is only one. There is no separation, only the illusion. And so how can I not be thinking about my constructs in from a universal perspective? And then they need to be non-contradictory. And that's you know, as I said, you always want to look at your negative biases. You always want to look at your negative biases map. Beautiful. I love this chart. One of my favorite charts in the world. I love charts, obviously. Systems builder. This is beautiful. This is clickable somewhere. Like there's other versions, like there's the original version online. I don't know if the original version is still up, but this is like one of the greatest things that you could do with your time is look through this chart and check yourself against each one of these ideas. So cognitive dissonance, i.e. having two thoughts that are contradictory, existing in the same space, is the definition of incoherence from an electrical engineering perspective, from a soul perspective. But that's just one of, I can't remember how many cognitive biases that there are, but there are like obviously like over 100, I would imagine. Okay. And you could either look at these from a grouping perspective, or you could start to look at them from a, you could just look at 100 of them if you really wanted to. But for me, like there's 188. Yo, shout out to the number 188 in the building. So yeah, there's 188 cognitive biases that are listed here. And yeah, like I said, I don't think there's not much better things you could do with a day than just to ponder, self-check against these. Cool. Cognitive bias codex is what it's called, by the way. All right, cool. So yeah, they did it more generic, this one. This is why I had to start at the beginning, because I realized that this first time that I built this, and obviously this is me working with ChatGPT, just asking me to do certain things. This one was a bit more generic. They didn't really speak specifically about this is quite generic too, just what the gear of perception actually is, as opposed to what it is within the framework of the theory of everything that we're looking into, which is right now Ken Wheeler's theory of everything. And we're basically saying you don't see the world as it is, you see the world, you see it as your lens renders it, i.e. perception, as the lens. And the lens is like your light cone. So your lens is the ability to process light. I'll say that one again. The quality of your lens is your ability to interpret light cones. You got light cones in your eyes. Light is information. Yeah. Hopefully that speaks for itself. I think I kind of broke. I feel like I'm repeating myself because I did say this earlier before. So yeah, we're looking at the lens, the meaning, and the language, and then the geometry as well. So we'll skip this for now. So yeah, this concept of the wizard, just as a refresh, is what is the conscious architecting? What a beautiful word, architecting. What is the conscious architecting? That would be you operating as a wizard. What are the clean commands? Minimal excess. This is the key, minimal excess. Whereas your ghost mode works on autopilot, auto loops, or old scripts rerunning behind awareness. The root access is never permanent. It is granted by attention. And so all that we're just basically saying is that you always have the ability to slip into one of these two modes of operation. All right, we're gonna now skip this particular fear of everything, and we're gonna go to another one now. So simulation theory, I'm only gonna cover a little bit because I feel like most people already know what it is. It basically just means that you don't really see the world as it is in its raw feed. You see it as processed information. So we see reality. These light cones is the ability to process information. And so the world becomes a render, becomes a projection. So I understand simulation theory, but we're not going to go deep too much into it today. I've already spoken about the dangers of simulation theory if you tap into the fact that if you start believing that reality isn't real or doesn't matter. And I normally go in a soapbox when I do that, and I don't feel to today. I'm not feeling to go in a soapbox. Where's my water? Where's my drink? All right, cool. So that's an example. So we're taking code, the raw code, green lines in the matrix. We're taking that raw code and we're putting it into sensory information. We're putting it into sensory information. So we go from non-perception, or that 0 point would be non-perception, to then feeling and sensations, to the dying down or the cessation of feeling and sensations. So these are the three modes of reality as spoken in the Buddhist text. You've got Samnya, Vedana, and Nirodha. So these are the three modes of operation, basically: cessation, feeling, and perception. I'm going to skip that. I'm going to skip all that. I'm going to skip all of that. I actually really want to just get into one particular theory of the universe, which is the last one, which is the complicated one. So we're about to go deep in a bit, by the way, people. I'm about to lose my whole audience. All right, cool. I'm joking. So then we got the holographic universe. So the holographic universe is this idea that the universe is a fractal. The universe is symmetrical. The universe is symmetrical, has some form of symmetry to it, and that the universe is a projection. So this really taps into simulation theory as well. Basically, they're quite similar-ish. They're similar-ish, but it basically says that each fragment contains the whole. So the fragment of, so the drop in the ocean, that drop in the ocean, the quality of the drop in the ocean is the same quality as the ocean itself, i.e. H2O and whatever minerals that there are. And so the only difference is power or amplitude, but the quality itself is the same. So in a holographic universe, we're basically saying that when we're saying that we are created in the image of God, we're basically saying that we are a holographic fractal. Basically what we're saying. So that's how I'm going to explain that. I'm not going to, again, like I said, with this particular one, there's a lot of information out there. There'll be way better videos of what I can produce here. So I want to kind of get into some new stuff and stuff that are fresh, and also going to put everything into perspective. But what it's basically saying is that your mind isn't storing reality as separate files. It's storing frequency interference patterns, a compressed code where every file contains the master key. Think water. What you call the world is a projection when a coherent light hits that code. That coherent light, as I said, is information. Information is awareness. Let there be light. And that hits the code, that's your light cones. Yeah, so I kind of explained that already. And so what we're saying, though, the key with the holographic universe, the key point here, though, with a holographic universe, the one takeaway I would say that is scaling. This word called scaling becomes absolutely key. This is how you start to if you can understand scaling, the mechanics of scaling, then you can understand the as above, the so below. You can understand how the one gets to the zero, how the all becomes nothing, because you understand that every core pattern appears at every level of the scale, in every dimension. And so when we were looking at the universality of things, that universality has to be fractalized. You have to be able to take this one idea, this one concept, and turn it into different things, different metaphors, these core constructs, like the circle, like the square, like the number one, like the letter A. These core constructs, I won't say they're core, quite honestly, but you know, we're getting closer. You should be able to see them everywhere. That will let you know how universal your mind is thinking and how universal your states of being are allowing you to build within. Thank you very much, Ansof. Thank you very much. Quite honestly, what I've been saying so far, there's not much new that what I'm saying today. My channel's been open for about 18 months. I think definitely over a year. My channel's been open for, and so I've got 42 videos. The number of my art. So yeah, we're at the number 42 videos today, which is the secrets to the universe. Anyone that knows the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, they asked the supercomputer, what's the key to the universe? And they said the number 42. And yeah, it's my 42nd video. So yeah, it's only right and exact that today's the day where I kind of touch upon the theories of everything again and kind of speak about stuff. Beautiful. You've been here before. Smashed. Even better. Good to have you back. All right, cool. So, light source modulation, focus, coherent, sharper light. Again, you can just copy and paste this. I'm happy to send this to you lot. It's just information. It's really, really difficult for me to speak about information at this moment in time with ChatGPT, the way it just spits out information at PhD levels with my mind and my ideas. So, you know, it's not, I can't hold this. It's just like, yo, if you want this, I can send it to you. It's no big deal. All right, cool. So, spoke about that already. Spoke about that already. Spoke about that already. Huh. That's a beautiful question, though. If this fragment contains the whole, what's the biggest story? That's a beautiful question. It's like when you find a gem in life, when you get those epiphany moments, those connection points, those synchronicities, those moments of coherence and resonance, and you're like, oh shit. It then allows you to scale into the bigger story, That's why like love is so important. It's like, you know, the love of your mother. Shout out to Mumsy. It's like the love of your mother. You're able to, from that primal nature, that primal love that you have from your mother, that you know, before the time that you were conscious of your consciousness, it was the pattern was already pre-programmed in you. And then if we're able to take that smaller story, that smaller fragment, okay, cool. So then what's the bigger story here? So the primary nature of the universe is love. That makes sense now. I can see that. You see what I mean? We're able to build those moments of resonance easier. If we didn't have love for our mother as a primal instinctual part of our reality, it would be more difficult for us to build the resonance with the universal understanding that the universe is love. All right, keep it moving, keep it moving, keep it moving. Obviously, I'm just reading from my notes as I'm keeping it moving and just seeing if anything stands out to me. Yeah, no, It's good. It's all good. It's all good. But I kind of know where I'm going with it as well. So, and also it's already 9 o'clock. I've already been on for an hour and a bit. Everything is everything. That's just the bar. Shout out to Lauren Hill. Everything is everything. Huh. Again, if you can move from this ghost state, so this ghost state would be life happens to me. People who feel down on their luck, life happens to me. From life projects from me. Powerful, real powerful. If you could shift that as a mindset. From change is hard to shift the pattern and the whole image focus. Yo, that's a fucking bar. ChatGTP 5, shout out to ChatGTP 5. I didn't write that. No one taking credit for that. Change is hard. Sometimes I read ChatGPT, I'm like, yo, that's a bar. Like, yeah, it's over for rappers, mate. That's all I say. It's over for people like myself, man. That is a bar. Change is hard. Move from change is hard to shift the pattern and the whole image flows. What this should really be doing is it should be shifting what understanding and adding the holographic universe into the construct of your reality as a thought form, as a belief system, as an assumption. What it does is it allows you to understand the importance of an individual grain of sand, i.e., the butterfly effect. That one flap of the wing of the butterfly can create a tsunami if it interferes with a wave in a certain way. And so shift the pattern and the whole image follows. That is beautiful, man. Beautiful. All right, cool. So which system is this now? Boom, 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 boom. I think this is my system we're going into now. We're going into my one next. And then we've got one more that we can wrap it up. Raw. What was I doing here? Yo, we went mad. I told you I went mad. Woof. Shout out to ChatGTP 5, boy. Tom Ross. I was able to throw half a book at it. I literally threw half a book at this. So yeah, basically, all right. So yeah, we're about to get deep. We're about to go deep, basically. So there is this website that, again, I'm not holding no information, that just got released last week. I'll put this in the chat. There is also a podcast on it. I'm not trying to hold out no information out. It's too much for one person, mate. Anyone could help me break down this stuff? Yo, let's do this, man. So this is the video that I said was the greatest video that I've seen for the year. I say that probably every month, by the way. But like at the moment, this is the greatest video I've seen for the year because I have this technology here, plasma fire ray. I know this guy. I speak to this guy. Well, I've spoken to this guy once before, but yeah. Anyway, I have his number, so I wouldn't want to waste his time. So anyway, whatever. So yeah, he's come out with 2 killer videos in the last 3 videos. And all right, sorry, I went to his channel. I didn't realize I went to his channel. All right, cool. There you go. All right, cool. So yeah, his last couple of videos have been mad. My guy there as well. Family, man. This is all family here, man. Seriously. All right, cool. So where is it? He didn't do it live. All right, cool. It wasn't live. There you go. There's the video. All right, cool. There you go in the chat. All right. So, like I said, I'm heavily invested into Dan Winter. I've mentioned his name probably 100 times on this channel. I have a wellness center, and 80% of my budget has literally went on Dan Winter technology. Maybe 70% of my budget for the wellness center was went on Dan Winter technology. So I mentioned that the first iteration of his technology is this thing called Phi Ray. Sorry, the latest version of his technology is called Phi Ray. So Phi Ray is this plasma device that works off of phase conjugate fields and a lot of these sciences that I've been speaking about today. And this guy is really old. He's really grey. His original pictures of him not great, as in this guy's been doing this stuff for like 40 years, whatever. Who cares? The whole point is that he broke down this code of how the universe works, or how the universe scales itself based on the golden ratio. So now we're gonna get a bit deeper now, based on the golden ratio, and he's got this equation called phi times Planck ratio. So we're just saying that the pixel, if we look at the universe as a pixel, one pixel is the Planck ratio. So the Planck ratio, all the Planck ratios are the smallest units of the smallest units of anything. So it's by this guy called Max Planck ratios. I don't know why I would try and Google this for as an image. Ain't nothing coming out here. Planck ratios. So anyway, what we're basically saying is that these are the smallest units of our reality. So we're able to map the construct the matrix, and they're all broken down. They all basically, reality breaks down at anything smaller or anything bigger than the Planck ratio. So that they are what creates the dimensions for the universe, either into the quantum realm or into the macro realm, basically. So there are many different Planck constants. One of them is around time. One of them is around length, for example. So that pixel, that one pixel, so that one pixel length is 35 zeros. So we're saying that reality breaks down. We're basically saying that reality breaks down after 35 zeros of a meter. Basically what we're saying. So any length shorter makes no physical sense. So after this, you would need a different form of reality. So these people that are trying to build reality, they're basically saying that you kind of need two systems. One that's based on the quantum realm, which is smaller than this, and one that's based on Einstein's theory. So Einstein's theory only works up into 35 zeros. Anything beyond 35 zeros, Einstein's theory of the universe and the mathematics that creates the constructs breaks down. Yeah, so hopefully people understand that. Cool. So when you so what we're saying is when you times, so what we're basically saying is when you times the, so yeah, what we're basically saying is when you times this ratio, and this ain't actually the full ratio, this is just the basic version of it, just saying it's 35 zeros. When you times whatever this Planck length is times the golden ratio, you're able to get perfect scaling. And reality, basically, you're basically able to calculate based on the multiples of Planck times phi, hydrogen, the radius of the proton, and about 200 to 300 other things that you see in nature that are fundamental to the construct of this reality, is based off of this phi times Planck ratio. And so this Phi Ray device, I could just go there now. And so this Phi Ray device, which is what I've got. So this Phi Ray device, which are these plasma balls here, and some other deeper science. I'm not going to get into that today. I've got other videos on it. But yeah, this Phi Ray device basically is built off of a cascade off of the phi times Planck ratio, especially tapped in, which also then taps into the Schumann resonance and chakras, for example. Let's give you 2 examples out of the 300. All right, cool. So yeah, this basically, this person here, this is the guy that has come up with the ratio, who builds, is like this inventor guy, whatever, bit of a I don't know, bit of everything. And then this person is like a leader in building chips, like microchips. So this guy is a worker, and he basically built a theory of everything based on Dan Winter's science over the past 10 to 15 years. So this guy's like a super clever guy who understands mathematics and physics, has built computer chips for 40 years, like, you know, top companies, basically. Scientist by nature, let's just say. And he's one of the first people, if not the first person, that's taken this guy's work, because this guy was seen as a bit of a airy fairy, you know, what's he chatting about? It must be chatting rubbish kind of thing. And he's like, no, I was building a theory of everything for the universe. And it was only when I put in your mathematics or put in your philosophy into my theory of the universe was I able to make my universe or my theory of everything be coherent. And we're talking about on a mathematical level, on some stupid mathematical level. I'm not going to click on, I'm not actually going to click on the video. I'm just trying to get the link from the video here now. So this is the website that you can go to. I'm not really sure if I would. Like today we're dropping science. We're going a bit. You can fry it into ChatGTP. That's all I can say. You can fry it into ChatGTP, and based on your level of understanding, based on your level of intent, based on your level of what you're looking to do with it, you can have a conversation with it. That's basically what you can do. That's basically what you can do. So, all right, let's get into it. Let's get into some of the basic concepts of it. But whilst I do that, I'm just going to show you like how mad this website is. It's not a very good readable website, is what I'm trying to say. These websites are terrible to read. But if you take your time with it, you can get somewhere. It goes on for a long time. It goes on for a long time. It goes on for, bro, this website is mad. Like, he has about 100 pages that are like this, by the way. This Dan Winter guy. So I'm very used to this as his format. This is his format for how he produces websites. It just is what it is. He's 70 years old. Leave him alone. So this basically is the key. So this is one of the keys. So look, you can see the Schumann resonance here. So we're basically saying that the Schumann resonance, when it's based on the 5 times Planck ratio, is actually 7.29, not 7.83. Yeah, that's what we're basically saying. So at these different stages of scaling, so at each one of these points, you would get like what we call a phase lock. Like a different part of creation becomes to exist at one of these different points of creation, or these different heights of amplitude, basically. You would get something within reality. So these are where the 300 things that they have understood the scaling. So if you times 2 by 10, so if you times 10 by Planck times 5, you get one thing. If you times it by 11, you get something else. If you times it by 15, you get something else. Different atoms and so on and so forth, basically. Hopefully, this is understood. Again, chat, if there's any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to slow this down. I can explain anything. I'm just, you know, sharing information. But until I get a response, I'm always going to just share it how I share it. That's what I mean. So I'm always happy to pivot and slow it down or speed it up. Yeah, no, we've clicked another page. But look, someone was just speaking about the pyramid. So look, this is his whole page on just the pyramid. It's got a whole page just on how to build pyramids and stuff, or what a pyramid actually is from a metaphysical perspective, an electrical engineering perspective. Got a whole page on it. So, all right, cool. Anyway, you get the idea. So let me go into my website. Let me go into my notes. What we're here for. All right. So what we're basically saying is that the real medium is ether, this superfluid charge. So Ken Wheeler also speaks about the superfluid. Ether is essentially just the superfluid charge field, i.e., it has energy. of full potential. So the nuclear bomb is based off of ether technology. It's based off of understanding ether technology. I'm going to Google something as well a bit later as well. That just went to my mind. Because I always say that with the nuclear bomb science, they could have basically healed the whole planet, but yet they chose to blow it up. The same science. And I think from today, I actually understand it a bit more deeper now, because I went pretty deep into it. So the golden ratio is 1.618, and it is an irrational number. So the number goes on forever. I didn't actually know until today that mathematically it is actually the perfect. It is the perfect. It's what's called the perfect irrational number. And what they basically meant by that, what the mathematicians mean by that, is that it's the simplest way to using 1 + 1 + 2. You know, this fractal ratio. Yes, ether is the rest state. Ether is the rest state. So, yeah, we're basically saying that the golden ratio is perfect fractality. You can't get more perfect fractality, self-similarity, coherence than the golden ratio. So it is non-destructive. That was mad today. Like even here today, I spent like half an hour trying to understand this. I was like, why is it non-destructive? Why are you not just calling it constructive? So look, whoever said about the superpositions, this is basically key. The golden ratio 1.18 fractality makes wave super, and the ether is also waves. So when they're talking about waves versus particles, we're also talking about the ether. The ether produces electromagnetism, which is basically the dielectric. So we're saying that the universe is a triality. The universe is a triality of the dielectric, electric, and magnetism. See if there's anything good coming up. And you see that there, yeah? So the magnet is always trying to create a toroidal field. When I said that the toroidal field is the universe, we're basically saying that within a magnet, when you look underneath the ferrocell, when you look underneath a ferrocell of a magnet, you're always going to see the flower of life. So this is just the center point of a magnet. All someone has done is just shone a special light and something. It's called a ferrocell, basically. So all you do is just a way to see the electrical field of the magnet. So we're saying that this space is the 0 point. This line here would represent electricity. So you've got lines that are the electric lines, and then you've got the magnetic lines. This point here is 0 point energy, no ifs or buts. This stuff is not as spooky and as spherical, spiritual as it needs to be. You can explain spirit from an engineering perspective. And we're literally saying that each magnet has a 0 point, has a space that is beyond space and time, that is non-local, that compresses. So all gravity is a compression back to flow state. You know, that's what gravity is. That is not in mainstream science, by the way. So all of these theories that I'm talking about speak about the ether. So they remove the ether. I talk about this. I go on an absolute rant around this, how they removed ether from the science books 200 years ago. And so we just get this watered down version of science for the last 200 years, which makes everyone crazy, basically, because it's not tapped into what nature actually is, how we see it with our own eyes. And so in nature is the flower of life. These are universal symbols. We don't know whether they had ferrocells in back in the day. I would imagine that they used to meditate and they would see these images in their meditations, because these are the keys to nature. So they would be everywhere at the substrates of it. Yes, that 0 point is the void, is nothingness. This is not a space. Even though right now I'm putting a mouse over it, the true definition of nothingness is here. The electrical engineering version of nothingness is here in this space. It is basically a black hole, which is basically the absorption of all matter, the condensation, the compression of all matter back into its rest state is what a 0 point actually is. And so this is the torus. So when you're looking at it from a side angle, the donut, so say like you have a ring donut and you cut it in half, this then is the energy field of that donut. Because you've cut it in half, you now get 2. So if I was to look down on it, so all right, just to be clear. So this is me looking down on it vertically, like me looking, you know, standing above it and looking down on that donut, for example. And then this would be me looking at it from the side if it was cut open in half. And so if it's cut open in half, you see the torus field perfectly, which is also another 0 state. Again, another image. So this is from a square magnet. You can clearly see that this is a square magnet. And even the square magnet, so whether it's a circle magnet, if your question was, oh, is it the circle magnet? No, the square magnet also produces this shape. Ken Wheeler's a nutter. Shout out to Ken Wheeler. So Ken Wheeler did this 11 years ago. He copyrights all of his stuff. It's all for free, but you'll always see his name everywhere. Just, you know, intellectual property, and he values his knowledge. So yeah, this is the electric, and this is the. So basically, we're saying that this is how you start healing. So this north node, this northern energy of the magnet is where the energy comes out from, which is centrifugal. The energy comes out from here. That's why the arrows are going that way. But then in here is the south of a magnet. And I'm being a bit skipping words, like it's not really, quite honestly, but let's just use the word south. That's what most people call it. That south is female. That south is fat. So when you are looking to remove something, you're going to use your south side. You're going to return to the mother. You're going to use the south side of the magnet. If you want to grow something, you would use the north side. You can grow something in the south side, but I'm just being I'm not being specific. I'm on purpose. Like I'm being brief for the sake of keeping it brief. All right, cool. So that implosion. So the word is implosion. The whole point of your soul is you want to die implosively. The idea of the ancient Egypts is to return. So this Lion's Gate that passed, I spoke about this on Friday. This Lion's Gate that passed, I basically said that. I can't remember when I said it. I might even have said it on the private one, the one that was like you had to be a paid member to receive it. I came on twice basically. Anyway, I was basically speaking about the fact that, I did say it on the private one, the one that didn't get released to the public. I was saying that the idea of the soul is to implode, to compress in on itself, similar to like a hard drive would. Similar to like a hard drive would. So you want to implode centripedally, and that compression. So gravity is basically acceleration towards center. That's what gravity is. That's the definition of gravity. The acceleration towards center, and that center point is the rest point. And that is negentropic. So all of these words hopefully now are starting to kind of come into to make sense. And so we're basically saying that these Lank pladders, so each level up of the Lank platter, so each level up of the Planck ladder would be something that would be building in existence, these bands of existence. is basically what we're saying is that the constructs are basically built off of these things. These words are way too technical. I actually know what some of these things mean, weirdly enough, but there's no way I'm explaining that. We're not a physicist out here. So, quantized superfluid proton. Skip that. Skip that. Do you know what I'm gonna skip? I'm gonna skip this. I'm gonna skip this because basically this was me asking. I basically didn't ask for it to dilute the. I was actually just asking to extract the essence, including the mathematical frameworks. So obviously I don't understand a word of what this is saying, and I weren't trying to, but I wanted ChatGTP to understand it. So ChatGTP is nuts. This level 5 thinking is nuts. I can't express how nuts this is. Like they've just completely changed the game with this. Yeah, they just completely changed the game. But anyway, let me skip because I then go back in and I ask my own questions and I start to put in my own stuff. Basically. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, so now this stuff will make more sense. So it took 32 seconds to think based on the questions I had asked it, based on what I was looking at. All right, cool. So we crossed that already. We crossed that already. Special skills, we crossed that already. All right, consciousness. This is an important one though. So consciousness is negentropic coherence. So we're saying consciousness equals negentropic coherence. So when I'm saying that you need to improve, I'm saying that. So I said at the start of this channel or the start of this video that the key to life is to improve the quality or the qualia of your consciousness. And so in this particular model, your consciousness is explained as negentropic, i.e. the ability to gain charge through growth, gain energy through growth, coherence. That is what the practice is. And that practice can be practiced on a real practical level by lucid dreaming. If you're lucid dreaming, you're creating negentropic coherence because you have the ability to be conscious in your dream, i.e. in another construct, in another reality. And so this might not load up again. Feels like it's blown up. Not sure why you're not loading for. I was going to show you like an image. Yeah, that's weird. All right, cool. There you go. Not sure what that would happen for. Hey ho. All right, cool. So basically, when you lucid dream, you will be tapping into the golden ratio. You'll be tapping into the golden ratio when you dream. So you'll be tapping into the cascade of the golden ratio when you lucid dream. So you build this coherence at all levels of your waveform. So most people know that they've got different states of the brain, alpha, beta, gamma, so on and so forth. Each one of those states should relate to another. Think about each one of these wavelengths as a length of dimension, as an octave of reality, as another dimension. So when you're in your alpha state, you're thinking differently than when you're in your beta state. Then when you're in your delta state, when you're in your delta state, you're normally sleeping. When you're in your beta state, you're awake. When you're in your alpha state, you're in your learning state. So each one of these states represents a different way to view reality or a different dimension. A portal, you could even call it. And we're basically saying that these things are measurable by hertz. And as if you were to fall into a highly coherent state, i.e., a lucid dream, as in this has been scientifically proven through these people's technology, and this research has been going for like 15, 20 years, probably even longer, 30 years, I'll say, probably about 30 years. Through their research, they can see, for example, so your alpha wave might be at 5, then it goes to 8. So 5 and 8 is what? 13. Yeah, so then you can see, look, it's near 13. So you've got the 5 there, you've got the 8 there, and then you've got the 13 there. So it's not perfect like 100%, but it's close enough for you to not be losing much signal noise. For you to what? Take your memory through what? Death. So lucid dreaming is the practice of taking your memory through death without actually dying. So I'm basically saying you should try to lucid dream. This is like literally just let's not beat around the bush. You would want to practice you would want to have the skill of lucid dreaming, because it means that you could tap into these realms of coherence. So where are we? These states of consciousness. I spent an hour on this, maybe 2 hours on this today. That's why I'm not prepared, because I actually just went down a rabbit hole. I was like, why the number 4? So in this person's model, they keep on using the number 4. And I was like, why are they using the number 4? Because he mentioned it on his podcast, the number 4. And I didn't understand it. But I wanted to understand it. Obviously, I'm into numerology. So it just piqued my interest. Why the number 4? Because I thought it might have been related to the Fibonacci sequence, but I knew it, but it wasn't. So anyway, I don't think I'm going to break that down today, but I actually understand it now. So cool. All right. Bada bum bum bum. So the biggest takeaway, obviously, Planck scaling ladders, implosion thresholds. Spoke about that a little bit already. Hopefully. Yo, yeah, no, we're not going into none of that stuff. Bum, 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 bum. As usual, I'm reading my work for the first time, because I was just skipping into other ideas. I wasn't really reading, and I got it, so I moved on. But I'm actually just trying to pick out, as usual, things for you guys. But you can just read it yourself. You can just go into a silent reading. It's a reading club at the moment. So the question is, does this pattern compress without chaos? Are you able to compress any ideas without descending into chaos? This is how you find peace, people. Think about what I've just said. Are you able to compress the patterns of life, i.e., scaling, without descending into chaos, without losing noise? Are you able to sit with yourself in silence, in peace? Does the pattern compress without chaos? Because if it does, then it means that you're near phi geometry. You're tapping into phi geometry. All right, cool. So how this alters your perception? So how would the model like this alter your perception? So you start reading interference and embedding not as just things, So embedding is this analogy of Chinese Russian dolls even. So these Russian dolls sitting into each other. So that's what you're basically trying to do. So the metaphor of what you're trying to do as you tap into your inner states of reality, as you tap into these quantum realms, as you tap into portals. You wouldn't. I was saying this on the quantum portal podcast. I was like, why are you trying to go into portals when you are not at peace? It would be like an astronaut not prepping themselves on Earth going into to space. You know those ones where they the speed. They have to go into like max speeds and they go in they put themselves up to max speed 1, max speed 2, max speed 3 because obviously you wouldn't be stupid enough to just uh um go into space on a spaceship without conditioning your body. So this lifetime you're supposed to be conditioning your body to be able to tap into your state of peace on tap. Otherwise, you're going to be going into these portals, into these quantum states, into these, I don't know, trips. You're going to have a bad trip. A bad trip is your ability to not reduce the noise and interference and the decoherence into the system. Now, I hope these things are making sense. Like these things are like real fundamental. So when I'm saying like, we are running before we walk, this would basically be it. I just realized my camera's frozen all this time, no one told me. Screen share for the rest of the day. All right, cool. I didn't even realize that my camera has frozen. So, all right, cool. It is what it is. So, yeah, we'll charge it actually a little bit. Yeah, so coincidences become scale links on ladders. That's a fucking bar. That's such a bar. From randomness to resonance, from force to flow. So we want to reduce randomness into synchronicities. This is why synchronicity is so important. This is why I always bang the drum on synchronicities. It's not to try to force it because obviously that would be killing one principle. We're basically saying that when you understand this particular model or models like this, because they are quite similar, they both had the phi ratio, especially Ken Wheeler and Dan Winner stuff. They for me go hand in hand. You have objects to waves, you have force to flow, and you have randomness to resonance. And so what we're basically saying is because you don't want to force synchronicity, you don't want to like just create numbers for no reason and just start getting into numerology and just being heavy-handed with it. So the synchronicities must flow. The resonances must flow like a wave. So coincidences become synchronicities, i.e., scale links on the ladders of the Planck times the phi ratio. This guy basically talks about the proton a lot, which is basically, the proton, which is the fundamental element of the universe. Let's just say, keep it like that, keep it simple. So from willpower to coherence, change comes from phase cleaning. Yo, I never even heard that term. Is that actually an actual term? Is that a scientific term? I'm gonna Google that later. I'll Google that later. I'll Google that later. I've never heard that term before. Phase cleaning. Obviously, I understand it. But yeah, comes from phase cleaning. So spiritual hygiene, phase cleaning. Spiritual hygiene equals phase cleaning. Just to be clear. So you live in a, what's the time? 10 to 10. All right, cool. Yeah, boom. Last model, and then I'm gonna show you a couple of tables we're out of there. So, and from local into the array. So this is the key. This is the key to why you need to understand scaling, because you need to understand that you live in a longitudinal network. Oh, for fleas and peas and bro. Yes, transverse. All right. So what you're basically trying to do is become a longitudinal wave. I feel like there could be something better than this. There you go. So what you want to become is a longitudinal wave, basically. And essentially a longitudinal wave is something that can move in quantum space. Is basically what quantum is basically what scalar technologies and quantum entanglement is. Quantum entanglement is just longitudinal waves. So think of it as a pole. I've explained this before a few times, but think of it as a pole. Think about the two ends of the universe. At the two ends of the universe, one is a string and one is a pole. With the string, if I shake the string at one end, it's going to take time. No matter how powerful I am, it will take time, linear time, to get from one end to the other end. If I had a detector and a sensor that was powerful enough, and regardless of whether a device that could detect any vibration in the universe, it would be able to detect in real time, instantaneous, one touch from the pole from one end of the universe to another end of the universe. So that is what we call a longitudinal wave. The longitudinal wave is what we're trying to tap into. That's the energy that we're trying to tap into, which essentially is just another word for scalar technology, which is Tesla technology, which is basically the technology of quantum entanglement, where the universe is this superfluid, and it's like this superfluid becomes solid because you basically create these connection points of resonance. Hopefully this is making sense, people. Like, yo, hopefully this stuff is making sense. Like, obviously I've studied this stuff for like years, and I still am learning, like still learning. I am no quantum physicist or anything even clever with this stuff. But I understand the metaphysics, I can say that. So what you're trying to do is to go from localized into an array. So that array was this thing here, phase. Where is it? Was the image with the image I had? I thought I had a better image. I do normally have notes on this stuff, so I. There you go. Oh look, even had my analogy. Okay, I'm gonna. I always use the word pole, but I'm gonna from today I'm gonna change my metaphor. I've explained this metaphor about 7 times, and I normally use the word a rope, like a skipping rope. So if I shook this end, obviously this is then gonna wave, and if I shook that rope, it's gonna take time for it to go from here to here. Yeah, so that's what a transverse wave is. Because these are all connected, imagine this is a solid wave as well. Is a better way to think of this spring. This spring would be more solid, and in this solid spring, the minute I touch this, you're gonna feel it at that end. That's basically what a longitudinal wave is, and it's coherent. So, all right, cool, boom, let's go. So you want to basically live in this array. So all sacred sites connect an array. When you're trying to create a sacred grid, when you're, so I'm saying, like when you're constructing, like I haven't really went into like the practice. Like obviously I would be here forever if I was to start talking about how you relate this stuff into like alchemy and rituals, and I'd be here forever. But we can maybe do that as a part two, I'll see. But essentially, this is how you start building sacred sites. This is how you start connecting ley lines. This is how you start creating energy grids within your house. on your body. This is how you create meridian points. This is how you create chakras. All of this science is based off of longitudinal networks. All of your meridians are based off of longitudinal networks. These fields. Nah, didn't do that. I'm not even sure I went. I think I went after this. I started breaking it down onto some mad level. I think after this bit. So I'm just gonna skip this for now. Okay, cool. We'll go to the gears because the gears bit is where you get the prompts, and I'm really enjoying the prompts today. So perception: am I viewing in scatter or implode mode? The prompt questions you ask yourself. What pattern is the moment part of? Is it fire friendly? This is the sign for fire, by the way. What pattern is the moment part of this, and is it fire friendly? This is about how you live in the moment. So that rung obviously is the spring. Reframing finds the rung of your story so you can begin to stack your actions. Bro, there's so many gems in here. Incredible. Do my words pack or splinter reality? I.e., does it cause cohesion or compression or negentropy, or does it splinter? Does it fractal? Is it causing separation? Is it causing splinter groups? You know what a splinter group is? So these splinter groups is basically the opposite of God. This is evil. Like this would be the metaphysical version of evil, is creating a splinter group from oneness, trying to create a two-ness that doesn't have no recollection, memory, that tries to remove its memory, i.e., the devil doesn't exist. So what is the smallest move that adds coherence? I'm going to use that for myself. I'm adding that, bro. I'm adding that right now, so I don't forget. So as most people know, I've got words of power. So I create words of power. And we'll add that into my words of power. So I have like action points and prompts. That's a banging prompt. That's my favorite prompt I'd say from the day. What is the smallest move that adds coherence? I think that one's so foul, even put it in the chat. There you go. Don't say I don't do that for you lot. The smallest move that adds coherence. Please them. I got a million things on my mind, people. Things are going on in life. That there is going to keep me up at night. This question here is going to keep me up at night tonight. I'll tell you that. So, sorry, what's your question mark about thoughts? So I don't understand. Einsof, what do you mean by thoughts? Question mark. All right, cool. So did today's stack? This is like alignment. This is how you align your soul into a flow state. What we're talking about here at Gear 5. So did today's stack feel longitudinal, far and cheap? I don't know why they use the word cheap for, but cheap is easy, basically. What they're using. I don't know why they're using the word cheap for. But yeah, cheap means easy. Which again, smallest move would then relate to easy. So the longest, so coherence, by coherence, they mean longitudinal, they mean long, they mean coherent, they mean being able to scale up and down the fractal, up and down all dimensions and octaves. Music is harmony, music is rhythm. Was it rhythmic? And then how easy was it? Or was it near and noisy? So was it only short-minded and then had a load of... So in order for you to achieve this objective, you basically blew up a whole thing, which is the noise, and it had no long-term had no long-term benefits, basically. So so flow equals low friction. and misalignment equals lag and heat. Let me say that one again for people in the back if you weren't paying attention to like this 360 thing of what's happening now. Please and please, I went a bit too crazy. So you know I'm not in ChatGTP. I've been on my normal way of teaching. So I just came across something beautiful. I don't know where it's went now. Let's go back. Where are we? Where are we? Indeed, I flow. Now we move to my metaphysical toe. Yo, we're not even going through my metaphysical toe today, you mad. All right, cool. There it is. Heat equals misalignment. Say that one again. So when we're talking about soul alignment, yeah. So when we're talking about soul alignment, which is what everyone's trying to do, everyone's trying to align their soul with their spirit, their physical, yada 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 yada. We're basically saying that heat, which is another word for energy, which is another word for action, equals misalignment. So friction is what creates heat. Which is a loss of energy. Hence why this question here is one of the most banging questions you could ever ask yourself. What is the smallest move that adds coherence to my life? In case you weren't paying attention. You could even improve that question and say, what's the smallest move that adds coherence to life? Life itself, because then that obviously taps you into the universal we, as opposed to the individualized me, the crash and burn state. Basically, the crash and burn state is the individualized ego. I got bars too, people. I got bars too. The crash and burn state, mind state, is the plague of the individualized ego. I like that. I like that. That says it all for me. Boom. All right, cool. Bars. So keep it moving. All right, cool. So the geometry of the soul. You know, ain't no way we're doing that. I need to go. I need to go. I would love to explain this tetra. All right, cool. So for another time, people. So wizard mode cleans, writes, cleans ratios, turns implode on, opens longitudinal channels. The ghost mode replays and scatters loops and fills the stack with beats. Didn't explain beats, but the root isn't permanent, it is granted by attention. The bar. Does this compress without chaos? All right, cool. So yeah, that's basically the end of the external systems theories of everything. I actually have my own theory of everything, and I'm not going to go deep into it because I've shown it to people before. I'll just show it in 5 seconds. I'm not gonna go mad into it. I'm not gonna go mad into it. Yo, that's mad. How do you not just come up at the top for? Yo, bro. Yo, bro. Yo, bro. Yo, bro. Got you here. Yeah. No. There you go. All right, cool. I had that anyway. All right, cool. So yeah, this is my theory of the universe. So yeah, we're basically just saying that this I am state is the 0 point, and that that creation from a metaphysical. So this is a metaphysical framework. It's not really necessarily a mathematical one. You can add some maths to it if you really wanted to, just for the fun of it. But really, it's definitely a philosophical, metaphysical framework. And we're basically just saying that the I am is that 0 point, and that when you are tapped into your egoic personality state, that is an exploration of an am I and a who am I. And that is that we live in a triality, not a duality. We live in a triality, which is based on these three reflections, these spectacles, these lenses. Obviously, this eight, this infinity sign is also a lens, is also glasses, light cone frequencies. And so it's just about how you are reflecting reality. Am I what stage of reality am I? As I was explaining the other day, I was actually on an am I stage. I was questioning myself. I was doubting myself. I was on an am I really this thing that I have said I wanted to be? And then that's when I went into my cousins. And that's when on the call, I said, if you are able to tap into your intention without feeling lack, you have the keys to the universe. So I basically had lost the, I basically had started to feel lack. And I could immediately feel it. I don't like it. It feels icky. That's my version of ick. It felt real ick. So I don't like that feeling. I would say I don't like it. I don't hate it, but I don't like it. I feel uncomfortable feeling lack. And I could feel a lot of lack. There's a lot of things going on in my life. I was feeling lack. And I would imagine that that's where this summarized. Because when I said this statement, I just completely, it was just off, like, I was just riffing like how I always do, like now basically. I was just live on that podcast and I just said it. And so that lack is felt at these who am I stages and am I stages, especially at the am I stage. The who am I stage, you can cover it up with curiosity. If you approach it just from a curious mind perspective, you don't necessarily need to feel the lack because you're not really questioning any lack. But the am I stage is quite a hard one to not feel the lack on because you're obviously trying to reduce and you're looking at your excesses. So your excitation, exploration, and exploitation. So in your exploitations, you may have gained too much weight in your transcendence. And so you're looking to see what you need to remove. Am I really that thing that I called myself? No, I'm not that title. That title is carrying a weight that is becoming now a burden, a noose, its own prison, its own boundary of prison. So I need to remove that because that has just created another form of lack that I trapped myself in unbeknownstly when I went into the who am I, into me thinking that I now am this construct. But I just realized that I created a new construct. It wasn't really a true I am, it was an actual construct that it was based on the necessity to understand who I am, to understand the who am I. So my desire to understand who am I, which is the know thyself call to action, creates these constructs, creates these false realities. Yeah, so yeah, this is it. So yeah, we're almost out of there. Um, we're almost out of here. So I just wanted to show a table. I think the table I did produced in this other, yeah, produced the table in the other chat. All right, cool. All right, I feel like we'll just stay here. We'll just stay on the last one. All right, cool. So I produced this table, and this is basically talking about the trap. So as I was speaking about here, basically, is that the traps where ghosts and bugs can enter into the system, viruses, malware, whatever you want to call it, forms of egoic states, they're everywhere. No matter where you are on your stage of transcendence, there is almost always a potentiality for these errors to start existing in your system. And they can be real subtle. So I was trying to focus on more like the subtle elements. Okay, so we're trying to tap into emptiness. So how do we tap into emptiness without feeling nihilism? And how do we tap into abundance without feeling hedonism? Basically falling into the trap of hedonism, which are what these ghosts are. We don't talk about the ghost and the wizard. So the wizard is trying to master what I'm saying basically anyway. In my version, this wizard is trying to master abundance and emptiness. He's trying to go for both. So reduce the clinging so awareness is spacious and responsive. So if you're trying to tap into your emptiness and you're reducing so far that you collapse into losing your meaning, collapse into disengagement, and especially from responsibility, then you've fallen into a ghost trap. Basically, what the whole lecture was about was really getting to this slide as usual. 2 hours later. Thank you very much for staying, people. By the way, I do appreciate it. I am as only as powerful as the energy I receive, and I say that humbly. As humble as I get. So yeah, people on the live, I appreciate you, man. So abundance. All right, cool. So the abundance, they want to amplify possibilities, resourcefulness, creative manifestation, embody potential. Yo, ain't we all trying to embody our potential? I feel this thing. I feel greatness. I feel it. I feel it. But I can't see it. I can't see it. That's a gap. That gap is a ghost, the ghost of gaps. They call it the god of gaps. We should call it the ghost of gaps. These ghost of gaps create the trap. Yo, I'm getting a bit giddy, man. Like I'm trying to bar, but I'm not trying to bar. So, so you want to amplify pleasure and wealth with trinkets, isn't it? Obviously, consumption becomes your identity. So you want to tap into abundance and resourcefulness. So how do you tap into resourcefulness without tapping into the idea that then consumption takes over your identity? So these trinkets, like I potentially fall into this trap all the time because I have so much stuff. I actually hoard. I'm an abundant. I tap into abundance. I have loads of things. You know, I didn't just get one spiritual device and focus on that. I didn't just study one idea of metaphysics. You know what I mean? Abundance of ideas. Like I literally studied theories of everything just because one wasn't good enough. I wanted to study 100. I wouldn't say I wanted to study 100, but I wanted to see the 360 degrees. You know, I wanted to see perspectives and angles because I wanted to get a full picture. Then I would have to start ask myself why. So it always comes back down to that why. Why? Is it because I want to be the smartest person in the room? Is it because I'm trying to impress somebody? Is it because I'm trying to justify my own existence? Is it because I'm trying to validate my own existence? Is it because each construct of reality allows me to paper over the feeling that I really know nothing and I'm insignificant? So I mean, so let's move on. Again, I'm happy to send this to people. I can easily send this to people. There's no problem. You just gotta hit me up. Find me on my link tree, which is in the channel description. So phenomenology is basically your felt state. Okay, you said it. So I was just your state is your state of being, basically your state of your experience, your experience, how you feel. So in your emptiness state, peace and emptiness, because there are people that can't sit with themselves, because when they sit with themselves, they feel dread. Existential dread is why half the people don't meditate. Like I know people that don't meditate because when they are scared to be by themselves in silence. People that go to bed with their sleep. People that go to sleep with their TV on have an existential dread because the silence is deafening. The silence is scary. The dark is scary. or they go into numbness. Everything feels numb. So this is what I was saying. On Friday, I got emotional, you know. I got really emotional on Friday because in the leading up to the Lions Gate, I imagined, I had this expectation that it was going to be a great day for me because I had said it was going to be a great day. And I woke up on the morning of the Lions Gate feeling numb and empty, flat. I wouldn't even say numb, I was flat. And then the reason why I welled up is because the universe, source, God, the Most High, Allah, poured into me at that moment. It was unbelievable. It was just an unbelievable experience. Um, just unbelievable experience. And it happened because it was synchronicities. So certain things happened. I basically switched on my phone. I saw something, and I saw these synchronicities that just led to this thing making sense around the Lions Gate. I came to an epiphany around the Lions Gate that I wasn't expecting to receive, because at that point I felt numb. I wasn't really trying to do anything. And then I got one, but the key is though, I got one joy. I paid attention to one thing. So I opened my phone and I saw the time that I opened my phone. It was a special time of something to numerology. And then I read a message. And then that message spoke to the time, and it spoke to the landscape. This person did not post it with nothing to do with landscape, but I related it to that based on my personal experience. And so I got these subtle joy moments. I had about 5 to 6 subtle joy moments in the space of about 4 minutes, 3 minutes. And then the 6th subtle joy just completely exploded me because it was like a compression of coherence. Hopefully this shit is making sense now. There was a compression, there was an implosion. That numbness, that flatness cleared away the debris, where I was able to just go into a rest state and bring in these subtle joys of coherence, i.e., synchronicity and resonance. And then I've got the final thing that, let's say, connected all of the dots to those 6 other memories, these 6 other experiences that I had experienced over a course of 4 minutes. And then that led to what we call bliss, a feeling of bliss and awness and incredibleness, like, you know, hard to put into words. And this was basically my introduction into the Lions Gate. So just unbelievable day. Unbelievable. And then after that, the clear attention that I had. So that synchronicity was the clear attention, especially the 6th one when it went into that Rahu energy. I did speak about this, by the way, on the red pill 24-hour thing. If anyone wants me to send them a link, I can send them the link as well. No problem. Reach out to me. But anyway, on that, I speak about the Lions Gate and I break it down, like, you know, my level, breaking it down. An hour. Not really my level, but, you know, we tried our best to do much in an hour. And anyway, whatever. My whole point is that this epiphany focused around the black line. And this epiphany around the black line, basically. And Rahu. And certain other things. But that was like the main thing. And then that's what just brought me into the state of bliss, which at some point was like an empty, as I was saying, so I went from an emptiness into an abundance, like paradoxical. So let me see how much of these get this better than your ChatGPT stepped up, man. So I'm just gonna look through this, see if anything just resonance. Obviously, because we've been speaking about resonance so much, I can't not speak on this one. So internal resonance prioritized over noisy attachment, subtle multi-scale coherence. So that was the key word, multi-scale coherence. So in that bliss state that I felt on this land, the morning of the landscape, when I went from emptiness to this bliss state, there was a subtle, when I was talking about the layers, like boom, point one, point two, point three, then you get this triangulation, and then you got the 6 points, which is the hexagon, which is basically water, which is basically memory. And then these 6 points connected, which is basically subtle multi-coherence, as opposed to emotional blunting and the loss of resonant. Are you not getting this? The loss of resonant feedback loops. You're a ghost if you don't have resonant feedback loops. All of these, remember this line describes the ghost. Second and third, fourth columns describe the ghost, just to be clear. Resonance becomes caricatured, loud and glittering, but unstable. Yeah, this is mad. This is mad. So like these are like mindfulness exercises. Like this table here would be like a beautiful table to just print out or put somewhere on your phone and just have, like, you know, if I was doing social media properly. So I laugh at myself all the time. Sorry. If I was doing if I was doing social media properly, then I would do things like put this as a post. I would post this on social media and beautify it and put some effort into it. I might do that just because I said it out loud now. I might do that, you know. Nothing like tomorrow. So yeah, I think I probably will. I might turn this into a blog. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do something with this. This is too good to just keep sitting there. All right, cool. I'm gonna do one more and then I'm gonna get out of here. So I may not even do one more. I'm just gonna look at this. So what is a ghost, by the way? I didn't actually really explain a ghost. So my version of a ghost is a decoherent remnant. My version of a ghost is a decoherent remnant that gets caught and trapped into a dimension. Basically what it is, i.e. purgatory, for example. So they are decoherent. So it's like an echo. A way to think about it is it's like I myself have the ability to beat the drum or beat the bell, like a ringing bell. Yeah. So that pattern that gets left is the echo resonance after I've hit the beat, but I myself am not there. So the ghost is vacuous. It's a remnant, it's a shell of something that was once real, but it's lost in time. So a ghost is something where the pattern that it's a pattern that repeats without life. It's an NPC that has ossified and outlived the living process that it has birthed. That's just my version of a ghost, by the way. And then the wizard is an embodied traveler who deliberately transforms patterns. Transformation is your ability to process signals. FFT, like FFT. If you want to understand the physics of this, you would want to understand this thing called FFT. And this this is like the key to it, basically. I don't know if there's any graphs. I've never looked at graphs for this stuff. I don't know what it is. Yeah, we're not going to get into it too much, but basically it's how you transform. It's how you basically tap into the waveform. So if you want to actually understand the physics of it, you'd have to understand this thing called spectral analysis, spectrums, septrums, waveforms, FFT. So yeah, I'll just give you a little thing. So anyway, I'm about to bounce. So yeah, that's kind of that. Um, yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this one. I feel like today it was about as heavy theoretical as I'm gonna go for a while. But I wanted to just tap into some theory, some fundamental metaphysics before we get into like more of the alchemist, the wizardry. Like how do we actually put this into life? How do we create products? How do we create tools? How do we tap into our creator space? How do we tap into that emptiness space? You know, obviously I've been given hints mainly through the action, the idea of prompts, like so you can basically tap into your mental frameworks or revisit your mental frameworks. That's really where we are with stuff. But obviously there are meditations, there are breathing exercises, there are technologies that can obviously allow us to tap into these levels. And next week I may do that. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next week, but it may just be a how do we embody these practices and just removing the theory from it, essentially. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm potentially looking to do. Yeah, no, thank you very much for lending me your ears, Iron Soft man. Like, it's been a pleasure to speak to people today. I really enjoyed this chat. And look at that on the 44 views. Yeah, man. Tapped into that 4-4 energy. I didn't even break down the number four. Next week I'll break down the number four. I think that'll be the most that's I think that'll be the only thing I want to explain on physics. Is I'm gonna use that as a segue to tap into numerology. But I'm gonna explain the number four from a physics perspective because it's just mind blowing stuff. To be honest, it's completely shifted my mind state around certain things. But yeah, we'll save that for another time. That's how I want to give that a proper respect to break down. So yeah, like I said, thank you very much for lending me your ears. Uh, like, subscribe, share anything that you found interesting in this video that you want me to share with you. Reach out on my link tree. You can find it in the YouTube. Don't be lazy. You can find it in the YouTube. If you want to speak to me, you can find it in the link tree. There's a link to a 15-minute consultation. I answer any question, and you know, I'm happy to engage and collaborate. I'm always looking for things, people to collaborate with. And yeah, man. Until next week. Peace, peace, peace.